Hi everyone, I'm Eric Hoff, and a microculture that I belong to, that I decided to choose for my video presentation is combat sports, specifically mixed martial arts and boxing, if you guys are familiar with the two. Um, if you guys aren't familiar with the two, I'll give you a little explanation of both. So, mixed martial arts basically consists of a lot of different disciplines of fighting combined into one sport, pretty much. So, it consists of boxing and Muay Thai, which are stand up disciplines. So, stand up disciplines meaning fighting when you're on your feet. And they use all aspects of the body, including the hands and arms for punching, elbows for elbowing, obviously, knees for kneeing, and your legs for kicking. It's pretty simple. The sport also involves wrestling, grappling, and judo, which are all disciplines practiced for when you're on the ground, or if you want to get your opponent to the ground, pretty much. As far as boxing goes, you basically only use your hands to punch. I mean, it's pretty simple to explain, and I'm sure you guys probably already know what boxing is and how it works, but I figured I would explain it just in case anyone wasn't familiar with it. So I had a lot of different microcultures to choose from that I think that I know I belong to. But I consider combat sports one of the most important and relevant ones to me because I do it every week, 5 days a week, and I pretty much consider it a big part of my life. I devote like all my time and all my effort into this, so yeah. I believe there's a lot of reasons why combat sports should be considered a microculture. My mixed martial arts group and boxing group, especially my trainers, have a big influence on my communication. I know that for sure. I started at a very young age, and I was always taught by my instructors to listen to and to respect my elders at all times. This doesn't sound like something that you would think of when you're thinking about like fighting and combat sports, but there's a lot more to it than just like practicing fighting and competing. Um, and discipline also is a major characteristic taught in the world of combat sports. And I can pretty much say that solely from my instructors teaching me growing up and until this day, that I can consider myself very disciplined. Very disciplined, I think. Now, my parents had taught me the same rules of respect growing up as most people are taught by their parents in that dominant culture. But doing combat sports my whole life had like a different level of impact on how I treat people, especially my parents. That's for sure. Combat sports are not only about learning how to fight, as I said, and competing and all that, like, but it's like a lifestyle, and I was taught from a young age to always give back to my parents and to never disrespect them. And the same went for my elders or anyone who was older than me, whether it be my aunts or uncles, teachers, coaches, pretty much anyone like that. I believe everyone in the combat sports world shares this like aspect as their instructors preached it, which most instructors do, as long as their instructors preached it, which most do. Mine most definitely did. I can most definitely say that this microculture greatly impacted the way I communicate to this day, for sure. The people involved in combat sports, I believe, help contribute to making up the microculture. For example, I could take my teammates. this is just specific to this microculture, the specific microculture I'm describing, combat sports. We know how to move our own bodies and pretty much manipulate other people's bodies, move them in a certain way to get better positioning and or to even finish or submit our opponent. I practice MMA and boxing at a fight club called Maximum Athletics, where me, my teammates, and my coaches pretty much we share our love for this sport, and we push each other every day. Not only like inside the fight club to get better, with our skills, obviously, but like obviously we push each other to do that, but we also, it's not about like everything like on the inside of the fight club. It's pretty much on the outside as well, like just being a good person in general, and giving that respect out that people give to you, like giving back to people and stuff. I believe we're separated from a larger culture in the aspect that combat sports are, I don't believe are made out for everybody. I don't know. People might disagree, you might disagree, but I don't think they're made out for anybody. I don't think anyone could just get involved in this sport and just, have an easy time and just compete in it just like the way that some people can. We share beliefs and values of respect and discipline, as I mentioned earlier, for sure. And we carry these two characteristics amongst ourselves pretty much everywhere we go. Now, I'm not saying anyone who does combat sports automatically carries this huge amount of respect and discipline and just the greatest person ever, like wherever they go at all times. But I'm definitely not even saying that about myself, but I can definitely say that if I never had gotten involved in this microculture, that I would most definitely carry far less of the aspects that I just described than I do now. One huge trait that I believe most, if not all, fighters or people who compete in combat sports have is like the heart. Like obviously not like physical heart. Like I'll get to that though. Like you play football, you play baseball, you play soccer, you play basketball, but you can't play combat sports. What I mean by that is when you get into the boxing ring or the MMA octagon, it's not like a game. It needs to be taken really seriously. Anyone who competes in this sport, I consider to be special because you can get hurt, or some people even, there's fatalities. It happens all the time in boxing. A lot of people probably don't pay attention or know that, but it happens all the time. Never giving up until it's over and like having that heart to keep going, I believe is a trait that everyone in this microculture definitely shares. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Now let me get into some interesting facts about combat sports. So I'll do the basics first. So each MMA or boxing bout usually consists of three 3-minute rounds with a 1-minute rest period in between each round. So most people, for their first match, before they compete in their first match, they train so they can go double the amount of rounds than a real bout has. So, for example, I just said the normal bout is 3-minute rounds. So if I was training for my first bout, never had a fight before, or like a competition, a real fight, I would train. In my training, I would train until I could do 6 3-minute rounds. So when I get to the actual fight, 3-minute rounds feels like nothing, and that's pretty much. I mean, that's how I was brought up with competing, and that's how a lot of people, for sure, if you want to have your best performance, go about training for their first fight. Another fun fact would be that the cage you fight in MMA, it's called the octagon because it has 6 sides to it. I mean, it's pretty simple, but yeah, those are pretty much the like the basic simple facts about the sports, but I'll go into the history a little bit now. So, shoot. Um, so the first MMA fight took place in 1993, and the first boxing match took place actually all the way back in 1681, when I had to look this up, obviously, um, when the lieutenant governor of Jamaica actually he like engineered a bout between his butcher and his butler. I definitely thought that was interesting, you know. And this form of boxing in 1681, it was so early that there were pretty much no written rules. So like anything went. Obviously they wore gloves and stuff, but anything kind of went. It was definitely dangerous, and there's rules now to ensure the safety of people and stuff. But back then there was no rules really. And that's pretty much it for the fun facts. And I want to show you guys. I'll show you guys a video of me. Yeah, so that was just a short little clip. Figured I'd show you guys as something extra or whatever for the assignment. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned a lot, and I hope you guys understand why I consider this a microculture that I'm a part of. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.